Hey, sports dads, are you ready for the best combination of fatherhood and football talk? Well, let's go.
It's that time to have a conversation about fatherhood and football and relation. Ready, set, hut, grab your kids and huddle up. We might get deep, but just run it up the gut. So put your jersey on and clap for the home team. It's a dance thing, yeah, you know what I mean. So tell a friend to tune in if you heard me. To the best show in town every Thursday. Fatherhood and football, it's a dad's thing. Fatherhood and football, it's a dad's thing. Fatherhood and football, it's a dad's thing. Fatherhood and football.
Welcome to a Dad's Thing podcast, Fatherhood and Football. I am James Simmons, your in-studio host dad of two amazing daughters. I'm a former middle school, high school, and college football coach, as well as a former wide receiver at D1AA Fordham University in the Bronx. Today we are joined by Robert Davis. Robert and I played wide receiver at Fordham University during the 96-97 seasons. Today, Robert and his wife Dara are raising their beautiful children, Dava, Drayson, and Delana. What's going on, little bro?
What's going on, big bro? How you doing, man?
I'm good. And now that we've got all the formalities out of the way and all of the proper introductions, this is my little bro, and I'm going to call him Rob. All right, so let's get that.
Okay.
What's good, man? What's good? How you been?
I'm doing all right, man. You know, chasing a dream, aka sleep, trying to, get these kids right and, trying to do the thing, man, trying to make it like everybody else.
That's what's up.
Right.
And before we get into all of what we're going to get into, because we're going to have some nice things to talk about, share some stories from back in the day, get a little bit more about how you started football and what that means to you today. I know there's some exciting stuff going on, so I want to get that. But I just got to say thank you, right? Because you are a very instrumental part to this show.
Okay.
Pun intended. So the audience don't know, but Rob is responsible for the intro. We hooked up late last year, told you about the project, and then I hit you back up and said, man, I want something unique for the show. And I think I gave you 2 sentences, and that was something to do with what day we were going to release it, and the title of the podcast, Fatherhood and Football, a dad's thing, and then you did your thing.
Yeah, definitely.
How did that come about for you? I know you got some skills. Just share with the audience, if you could, a little bit about that.
I mean, it was interesting because we linked up back around the time. Myself and any of my Fordham guys know Joe Richardson and Anthony Booker. Those guys, we did some music a little while after college, and it was fun, and I think we thought we were being serious. We didn't really know, but it was fun, and we got some things, and still listen to that stuff these days. And we've got so it's memories, if anything, of just what your mindset was at that time when I was 22 and just doing what 22-year-olds do and think. And so I hadn't done it in a really long time. I hadn't been in the studio. I hadn't written anything or anything like that. And some guys that I grew up with in my hometown of Englewood, New Jersey, shout out to Englewood. I make beats as well, and they had reached out to me. They were doing something after a long time of a long hiatus, and they were just like, "Hey, man, we're putting this together, and if you want to be a part of it, you're still making beats. We can do it." So I was like, "Yeah, great, right?" And I'm part of this big chat group, and there's people just going back and forth. And in the beginning, I'm thinking like, oh man, there's too many people involved and nothing's going to come of it. And it's just going to die out, as things do. And I watched these guys like just go to work because they were used to each other. They'd been making music for years. And even though they had a hiatus, you know how that group thing goes when you're with your bros and things like that. And I just saw these guys go to work, and then things just started like materializing, and I'm like, wow, like, I had been so far removed from it. It didn't occur to me how technology had made the process so much easier.
Right.
Sometimes when you put something down and you walk away from it,
Mm-hmm.
you don't even think twice about it. You
Yeah.
don't think so once I saw them do that, I'm like, hey man, they had all went, purchased home studio kits, kind of like I'm sure you purchase your equipment and stuff. And it's like, man, and I'm sitting here like, man, like I feel like an old man, like I don't know this stuff exists. Like, so it inspired me to start doing it as well. And it was during COVID. So that was a big catalyst for it. Everybody was stuck in the house. So I looked at my wife, I said, can I spend $300? Because got to check with the bank, right? Like, and she's like, go ahead, and that's how it is. And it is not like riding a bike. Just, it's not like riding a bike. I mean, I think it's like any sport or anything like that you do. If you went out there today and you tried to play a whole game of football,
It's not happening.
You probably make it through the first 5 minutes, right? Same here. And it's the same thing with that, right? It's the conditioning of just, hitting it and doing those drills until you get to the point where you are in shape and you actually do something. And you kind of came along with that right about the time I had hit that point where it's like, okay, like, I understand what I'm doing now. And I was right in the thick of, recording stuff. So stuff was coming to me easy. And like you said, you gave me the 2 words and I was like, all right, well, it's an intro. I had never done anything like that before, but I'm guessing it shouldn't be more than 45 to 60 seconds long.
Right.
So that made it, and I just had to make it fit within that framework. And it was easy because I do coach my kids
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much all of the sports they do minus soccer.
Right.
I stay away from the soccer. And so even though I hadn't been coaching football at that point, it was easy for me to translate, that into because I still have the football frame of mind. It's not like that goes away. So I was sitting there and I think I was sitting in my basement and I was just listening to the beat on repeat. And after a while, like anything else, it just came out, and then it was just like, all right, well, after some tweaking and, a couple of, recording it a few times, it was like, yeah, I think I got it, man.
And then
it was harder.
And then you gave it to me and
Right.
and I listened to it and I'm like, it was about a week later, if that
Right.
much. And I'm like, you nailed it. And,
Right.
for
I remember
me,
you telling me that.
you nailed it. And one of the ways I knew you really, really nailed it was because I let the kids listen to it. And when I let the kids listen to it, they started bopping their heads. They got the words. And every time I played it, because I was just excited, they were like, oh, fatherhood and football, and they just would sing it. And it was cool. So like I said, man, you play an instrumental part in this process because I was just getting started with the thought process of this. So it came, we were kind of at the same place with your music, me with the podcast and thinking about it. And it just was a good marriage. So I appreciate you, bro, for that. The skills are still there. And here it is,
Right. I appreciate the opportunity, man.
Thanks.
That was a blessing,
Thanks.
sometimes, you don't, you never know what's going to come of anything, but in reality, as much as a record, I've probably, when I started the process, I probably got maybe like 15 to, anywhere from 15 to 20 like songs completed or almost completed. And like, I won't let anybody listen to them except for, the people inside my circle, the fellas, the fellas and my wife and my kids. And so I should press to do more with that. But so the intro, maybe that'll break the ice because that was, you know what I mean? Because that's probably the most public piece of work I've done.
Well, my hopes is to have a couple of seasons of this. I'm really enjoying it. And I hope the audience is enjoying it as much as I am and having conversations with former teammates, former coaches, and, going to bring on some other folks that just love the game of football, so when season 2 comes, we'll have to, go back to the studio and think of something else for the people, right? For the culture. Thanks for that.
Change the day on me. Change the day on me. So you have to force me to re-record it.
Right. So, I've already mentioned, we played together. I was going into my junior year. I believe.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
were coming in as a freshman, and you know, things were so different for me. Had you had come in my sophomore year, I still
Yeah.
would have been in the cloud trying to figure some things out. And I
Right.
don't know if I would have been the best maybe mentor possible,
Yeah.
but I just remember when you came in, man, you was this young kid and you just was loose and you just was instantly a part of what was going on. You know what I mean? You just wanted to be a
Yeah.
part of, and that's what I remember. And I also remember you taking some, you know, kickoff returns to the house, you know, 100 yards and whatnot, because you had wheels like
Right.
that. But,
Right.
you know, share with the audience a little bit about what you remembered when you came onto the campus your freshman year and I was a junior.
Right. Well, before we get in that,
Yeah.
this is we said we'll tell the coach stories. I want to tell the story about that kickoff return.
Okay. Okay.
First of all, I love that because I know as long as they never change that college rule, my name will forever be in the Fordham record books. It doesn't matter if 10 guys do it, 20 guys do it, my name will always be one of the names in the record books. And that's why I love that record. And I hope they never change that rule, but you know, we'll see what happens with that. But so the story about that is I'm a freshman, 96. I remember it like yesterday because my it was my first time going to any kind of Ivy League school or anything like that, you know, and you know, so we're at Brown and it's like the fourth quarter, we're down, I forget what the score is. And Coach Patno, right? Coach P calls and he comes to tap me, he's like, I don't know, I don't remember who the other guy was on kick return, but he was out. And they're like, Davis. They're like, you know, because you know, back in, I don't know if they do this now, but back in our day, everybody was kind of like the Army. Everybody got called by their last name, right? So he was like, Davis, you're out there in kick return. And I'm like, okay. I'm literally, you know, going in my pants like, oh, wow. Like, and he puts me out there and Larry Leap, right? he meets me halfway on the field and he was like, Rob, he was like, you have to catch the return. He was like, I got nothing left in the tank. He was like, just catch the ball and follow me. Right now, so if you know Larry Leaf, right?
Yes.
If you're familiar with him, right? You and Larry, you know,
came in together. We came in
you
together.
You were the smaller guys on the team, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So he was like, so just catch the ball and follow me. He turns around, takes out his mouthpiece, and he throws up on the field. Literally right there in front of me. And I'm like, and I'm supposed to follow him through, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, they kick the ball off. I catch the ball. Larry said, follow me.
Yeah.
We run through, we run through. I don't, you know, everything to the peripheral is blurs. And I'm just following Larry. And some guy comes into the hole and whatever Larry thought he didn't have left in the tank, he blows this guy up. I mean, and everything just parts like the Red Sea. And next thing I know, I'm at the other end of the end zone, right? And that was the craziest thing to me because I, you know, when he turned and threw up, I just knew right then and there I was about to die, right?
Wow.
So it was the craziest thing to me. So like that's a great memory for me in terms of football because you know that was a big thing, especially coming as a freshman at the time. For Fordham, I was the only one who had done it, and it was 101 yards, but they don't count past 100 yards in college. Just very much. So,
well, that is a story for the ages, and we're talking about 20 plus years. And
yes,
I was on the sideline. I saw the play, but I didn't know all the details that went into it. You know, I didn't know
nobody.
all
I
that.
think me and Larry might have been the only ones who knew what actually happened out there until this moment right now. So
thanks for giving us the inside look on that one. That's a great story. That's a great story. So 2 years.
Back to your question.
Yeah, two years we're there. And you know, that was one of your big spots, you know, and like I said, you just was a guy who wanted to be a part of and learn. And that was cool. And we connected, you know, we really instantly connected when you came on. And I think we roomed, you know, senior year. I was with Joe junior year. And then you senior year on my way coming out. So definitely good times.
Right. And it was funny because you said, what was the first impression, you know, coming to Fordham and seeing how things were. And honestly, I was terrified. right? I came from a high school that was 90% Black and Hispanic. There, you know, it wasn't an inner city school.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody knows, Bergen County, New Jersey is not the inner city at
Mm-hmm.
all,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's very suburban, but my town just happened to be one of those towns,
Yeah.
that, was, very, the school population
Right.
was mostly minority, or the
Gotcha.
majority minority.
Gotcha.
So I go from what you can consider maybe like an HBCU setting type.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my high school was like that with the band, and it was really, like that. And you take that and you put me literally by car 15 minutes away at Fordham University, and I'm searching for the Black people. All right. And even with the football team, I mean, there were like 90 guys on the team, but I mean, I think literally there were 7 of us, maybe, or something like that my freshman year. So that was the biggest thing that stuck out to me immediately,
Right.
right? Because I'm like, we're in the Bronx. Like
Exactly. I share that too with a lot of
right.
folks when I share my story of coming from Queens, moving to
Yeah.
Long Island, and then coming to the Bronx. I'm like, you have what it looks like inside the gates of Fordham. And then as soon as you
Yes.
step out, it's a whole different environment.
Different
You hit
environment.
Fordham Road and some of the other spots.
Right.
So I
Right.
noticed that as well. Go ahead.
Right. And honestly, Fordham, being where it was, honestly, I think was my saving grace, because you could walk outside the gates and hear the music I'm used to hearing in my hood, and see the type of people I'm used to seeing in around where I live at. So it gave you that comfortability, right? Like if ever I just felt like I was in the cage and I couldn't, be myself, I just had to walk outside the campus, Webster Avenue, Fordham
Gotcha.
Road, and just walk up Fordham Road, and you hear the stores playing the music, and that was, for someone like me, that was a great escape. I spent a lot of time, just on Fordham Road, going up and down, so that was the biggest difference, getting there on campus. And then
And did you, for the football part of it, did that help? Was that kind of a comfort zone for you?
it was, it was, because those guys, no matter what you know about football, one of the things they always teach you from day one is this is your family,
Right.
and these are your brothers, right? And you look out for your brothers, and that's how, and we take care of each other.
Yeah.
And that's always been the football code. I don't, I don't know if it's like that in every sport, and but that's how I think anybody who's played football will tell you that that's common. That's a common theme. So I never felt uncomfortable around the guys on the team. They always welcomed me. Nobody, gave me any, I don't even think I got, hazed in any type of way, or, other than carrying the pads, or,
You missed it, and so did
Yeah.
I. Because
Yeah.
Cal told me, because I came in with a head full of hair. I had my dreads all
Right.
throughout that, and I came from high school with that. And he said,
Right.
James, you are lucky that Coach Q came in when he did, because last year up at Trinity
Yeah.
Portland, all
Yeah.
freshmen got their hair cut. So
Wow.
we missed it. You missed it by a couple
Wow,
years.
yeah.
I missed it by just 1 year.
Yes, definitely. That's crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, I think if I remember correctly, I had cut my hair anyway to go to college. I called myself being mature, because all through high school, I don't even want to call it an afro. I mean, I never went to get my hair cut. My hair was just crazy. Like, it had to be a real special occasion. So I think when I got there, I said, oh, well, I'm growing up now. I'm going to college. Let me cut my hair. It's kind of one of those things. It didn't last long, 'cause,
I
but,
saw the little baby
going,
fro a little
right,
later.
going in the door. That's what it was. So, so that was a big difference. But outside of football, it was a bit of a struggle for me, right? Because I didn't, well, I don't want to say I didn't know how to,
Hmm.
but I felt like I didn't know how to have a conversation with a white person, right? Just coming from where I came from. The only people that I interacted with mostly that weren't Black or Hispanic was a teacher, coming up or whatever. I did have a few coaches a few coaches, but that was like my freshman year,
Right.
freshman or sophomore year. And then after that, all the coaching staff tended to be, Black or minority.
Mm-hmm.
So it was different in that regard because I didn't feel like these people came from the same place I came from. I didn't feel as though I'd say to myself, like, what are we going to have a conversation about? Right? Like they live wherever they live. They don't understand the things that I've been through or that, I deal with. I mean, and this is my 18-year-old, never been around the world view of what's, happening on the planet. So, then that's why we go to college, right?
But definitely real though, you know what I mean?
Right,
Because I understand what you're talking about, and not too long ago, first episode, we was talking a little bit about Dion down in Jackson State, and
right,
being able to relate and speak a language to families that want
right,
to entrust their kids to a
yes,
program. It makes a difference, and
right,
not necessarily if you have to be black or white, but you have to be able to connect. You have to be able to communicate the things that are important to
right,
mom and dad if you want my son to come and be under your leadership. So very important,
absolutely,
very important,
absolutely,
very
yeah,
important.
definitely,
So adjusting, and I talked a little bit about my adjustment as well.
yeah.
But the football part, right? You
Mhm.
said you had some coaches, and I think maybe in high school. What was that like for you playing in high school, and what did your coaches give you to get you to Fordham?
So my freshman and sophomore, my high school is a smaller football program, and by that I mean we don't have a huge amount of kids in our school. I don't know what the population is now, but at that time, I mean, we'll put it in perspective. My senior class had 106 people.
I graduated with 90 kids. I
Right.
feel you.
So, I mean, and if you're from Jersey, Long Island, Queens, you kind of know what that's like, right? Because in Jersey, mostly every town had its own high school, right? And their own board of education. So literally you go 3 miles and it's the next town, a whole nother high school. You go, so that wasn't uncommon. But so as a freshman, I made the varsity team because I could kick. And then as a sophomore, I played. I probably wouldn't have played had we had more players. But I played every game as a sophomore. Got my butt whooped up and down the field. I mean, we're talking 110 pounds playing cornerback. I mean, just getting destroyed, right? Um, Junior year, we had a coaching staff come in. We had, and they were all minorities. So, like you said, kind of like the Dion thing, these were people that I could relate to, quote unquote. So I was more apt to listen to the things they told me. And these were all guys who went to college, had graduated college. So this is that other layer to it. Shout out to Coach Whiting, Coach Deering, Coach Mag, rest in peace, and Coach Walker. And these guys, were the first, as far as football was concerned, was the first time that I saw people that looked like me that used football as a catalyst
Right, right.
for their lives. So it was the first time that I said, okay, I see how this goes. Now, mind you, at that point, like I was on nobody's radar.
Yeah, yeah.
Like nobody was saying, hey, that guy number 7 from Englewood, watch out for him. Like, no, that was not happening going into my junior year. And these guys came in and they went to work and they started, just changing things, changing our mindsets about, where we came from and what we could accomplish.
Right.
And the things that we were expected to do as men representing the football team outside of the football field.
Yeah.
And they held us accountable for that, right? So I think it might have been the first time in my life that somebody actually came along and held us accountable, which was a very important piece going down the line, right? Because when you don't know how to hold yourself accountable, somebody has to show you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for a lot of us who grew up in households where dad wasn't there, you know, and shout out to moms, they held it down. But there's just certain things you hear people say all the time. There's just certain things that, a dad's going to teach you that you just, that's just how it happens,
Yep.
right? So these guys, in a way, that came along and held us accountable. So it was like, okay, right, like you're holding me accountable, so I'm going to hold myself accountable, right? In the beginning, you're doing it not to let other people down, but as it begins to translate and you begin to understand how it really works, you start to hold yourself accountable, right? So that's the transformation of it, right? And that's what began to happen, right? So my freshman year, I found out at the end of the football season that I was going to have high school. I found out that my grades weren't like great. Like, when Coach Mack, like I said, rest in peace, he was, integral part in a lot of people's lives in my town. And he comes up to me in his, grandpa kind of gruff voice. And he's like, "Hey, Bobby." And he called me Bobby. Nobody called me Bobby but Coach Mack. And he goes, "Hey, Bobby." He's like, "You shouldn't even been eligible to play last season." He was like, I don't know, what happened or whatever. He was like, "But you better fix it." I said, "Okay." I said, "All right, I got you." He said, "You were the only freshman to get a letter in varsity because you were the kicker, right?" And he said, "You better fix it." "All right, Coach Mack, I got you," right? Because you didn't want to have to answer to Coach Mack if you didn't, get it right. So sophomore year, even though I was getting my butt kicked on the field, I was doing my work in the classroom for the first time. And so junior year comes along, and I think we're like 2 games in or whatever. I still hadn't done much on the field. And we come to a game against Cliffside Park, which was kind of considered our rival because they were the Raiders too, like my high school. And I remember like it's yesterday, Coach Walker coming up to me and he says, and he's like, "Rob," he's like, "Listen," he was like, "You got the speed straight ahead. You can do all of this. You can run, you can catch, but you ain't got no wiggle, man." And I'm like, "What you mean I ain't got no wiggle?" He was like, "You don't got no wiggle, man." He's like, you can't beat nobody just running straight up and down the field." So he's like, so he proceeds to explain to me the most simplest thing on running a fade route. He's like, "Look, you go 10 steps, you take 2 steps that way,
bam,
20 steps that way, let the quarterback lead you to the ball, right?" Go out on the field, about 3 plays into the game, they call a play. I do exactly what he tells me, touchdown. And that's when it clicked, okay, if I listen to these guys, I can do big things, right? So from there forward, in terms of my abilities on the football field and my willingness to listen and take instruction and do those things completely changed, right? And because there were other guys on my team who were being looked at by other colleges or whatever, is how I got on Fordham's radar. So Coach Mariani, right? We all know his friend. He was looking at my quarterback at the time, and I happened to be the person he was throwing the ball to on most of the film. So I guess Coach Mariani is looking at me like, "Who's this little skinny kid running around catching the ball?" Whatever. And so he comes and he's like, I mean, when I tell you, like, I didn't know what I was doing after high school. At that point, like, I don't think I had filled out any college applications. I had no clue. I was just going to graduate and I was just going to figure it out. Right? And that was it. Coach Mariani shows up to the school and he's like, "Hey," he was like, "You can play football." He said, I think, coming from where you come from, you've got the grades," because I had worked on that the year before. He said, "You've got the grades. Yep. If you can get the SAT scores, right? He was like, if you get the SAT scores and just continue to do what you're doing on the football field and keep the grades, I think we can get you on the football field at Fordham. I'm like, well, and at that time, Fordham was a financial aid based school, right? So he was like, so you have to qualify. So I'm like, so it's not a scholarship or it is a scholarship or whatever. He's like, he's explaining it to me. I'm clueless. So he's like, look, just have your mom fill out the paperwork, blah, 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 whatever. We love to have you come out for a visit and all of this. I had never heard of Fordham, not a day in my life. If you would have told me it was in the Bronx, I would have never, And so we go out for this visit and I'm pulling in the campus and I'm like, wow, everything looks like castles, kind of the way the buildings and those things are. And I'm like, man, and then I'm like, I can't believe. I was like, oh, and there's the Bronx Zoo right there. And the botanical gardens, I didn't even know what the botanical gardens was, bro. I didn't, it was like, wait, it's a place where they just grow plants? Like, I don't, So I get there, and as soon as we're driving in, my mother looks at me and she punches me in the arm and she's like, you're going here. And I was like, okay, can we at least, get in the door first? And, so I go on my visit and, the visit is great. Anthony Booker is my, is my host, and I meet the guys and, we go out, and then that's when, I discover Webster Ave and Fordham Road and all of that. And, I walk out, I go home, nothing happens then. I go home. Coach Mariani comes the next week. He's like, hey, we ran the numbers. He was like, you come here, you don't pay nothing. You got to pay for your books, but financially speaking, as far as what your mother makes, single mom, blah, blah, you're good. So I looked at him and I said, okay, so where do I sign?
Right.
I mean, in hindsight, obviously, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life, if not the best, right? If I don't do that, if those things don't happen in that particular, order or whatever the case may be, I don't know what happens. Really, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I would have joined the army. I don't know, right? Like when I think about it. So that was it. I didn't really know what I was signing up for with college football, right? Like, I mean, I just figured like, all right, I get to play football another 4 years. I get to go to college, which is at that time, I think it was more for my mother than it was, for me. I knew I didn't want to let her down, which translates back to what I was saying about, holding yourself accountable. If you're not holding yourself accountable, other people will. So I was holding myself accountable for my mother because I didn't want to disappoint her.
And that came through football. Your coaches, kind of put you on that path, as you said, to holding you accountable until you were able to do it yourself. And that's exactly what, our coaching staff, Coach Q, Coach Mariani, that's what they came in doing, telling us that, we're football players, but we're going to be different than the rest. We're going to be respectful, bust our trades, handle our business like businessmen. And that sticks today. And you got that coming through high school, not exactly knowing what you wanted to do, but it lined up well. And I think that's why you were able to just kind of seamlessly, try to figure some things out. But as far as the fellas was concerned and the football was concerned, you was just in there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Fordham is a great environment for me just because it was close but far. Like I said, I can get 15, 20, 50. If I could literally take the bus home and be back in my hometown in an hour.
Or you can have Big Bird give you a ride home. One time, which is what we did, because it was a hop, skip, and a jump. And same with me. So lots of similarities because, I stayed at home on the weekends, to see my family because, that's just how it was, But
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So go ahead.
And I did that too.
Right.
And my freshman year that, I was home every weekend. It was good because it allowed me to make that transition, from like just not having to like, you can understand how some kids go away to some school real far away. And, get homesick really easy, but like I was always able to come back to my home base and see the people that I loved and wanted to be around and wanted to see. So that really kept me grounded and reminded me of why I was where I was,
Right.
because of a lot of those people, and for the things that they did for me, coming up to keep me out of trouble and just being on my side. So yeah.
So 4 years done, played football, and after I left, you still had 2 more years, and you
Yeah,
guys, started bringing some different folks in. I mean, I'm speaking
absolutely.
specifically on the offensive end, guys, just throwing bombs all over the place, and
Yeah,
guys catching balls and
right,
having 50, 60 catches, maybe more a year. So a
right.
lot of good things that I had to see from a distance because at that point
Yeah,
I coached the next year. So that was your junior year. And then the
yes,
following year, I had moved out to California, so
right,
I was away and had to see these things from a distance,
right,
keeping track of, box scores and things of that nature for a minute.
right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a different beast in terms of um just the way things were. Like, you understand it now, being removed. You still watch a Fordham game, when you get a chance to see him on TV. And it's weird how it's like it's been like 20 years, but you watch it like you just left last year. Like, and you're looking at these guys like, you could beat that guy. I could beat that guy, right? It's just like you still feel that energy, right?
Yeah.
They're your brothers,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
may not know you. You haven't seen them. You don't even know their name. But when they're on that field and you're
It's
watching
like
them and
us
they've got those
representing
Fordham
us. Yep.
covers, because
Yep.
that's us. You're watching them. You're in it. Like, it's
Definitely.
almost surreal, crazy.
Definitely,
So
definitely, definitely. So now, we fast forward, right?
yeah,
And you play your 4 years and you go on and do your thing.
yeah,
Now you dad. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Three
yes.
kids, and I know you're active with them, and you've. I don't know where you guys all get this running stuff. You've been telling me, James, run. It's good for your mental and all of that type of stuff. This and stuff. Uh,
Yeah,
I haven't found it yet.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but
yeah.
tell me a little bit now. Rob, Dad. You still
Yeah,
have that fire in you. You
yeah.
have the knowledge to be able to pass down to the kids when it's their time. So what does that
Right.
look like for you now?
It's a little crazy, right? So I started coaching my oldest, like she keeps me on my toes. She's gonna be 13 this year. And so she started when she was 4 with basketball, right? I used to pick her up from daycare and I'd come in and she'd be in the gym and she started with this little volleyball. I, remember it was like yesterday, I come in and she'd be on the big 10-foot rim, just heaving that thing up there, just heaving it up there, and it would be going in. She didn't have any, she's 4, she's not like Jordan out there, but I could just see like her determination that I'm gonna get this, right? So I go to her and I'm like, hey, you want to play basketball? We can sign you up or whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, we'll find a way, we'll figure it out. And so I call the guy in the program and it's like, well, they're really supposed to be in kindergarten, you know, um, blah blah blah. He was like, but hey, I need a coach. If you coach,
Yeah.
I'll let her play even though she's 4. Like, all right, great. Now, I had no idea how to coach basketball. I mean, I played in my high school team. I mean, I know the basics, but I you know, though when they talk about the whole thing, like it's not the same
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
as
Yeah.
playing and coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not at all.
Yeah.
And anybody who's done it will know that.
Yeah.
Um, so we kind of grew together.
Right.
As I would learn things, I'd teach her. Like we'd play a game and we might lose, and then I'd be like, okay, and I got the film thing from football, right? So I'm a film guy to the fullest. Like anything I coach or whatever,
Somebody
I
filming
got
it.
the camera in the corner,
Yep.
somebody filming because I need to go back and see where we can improve. Um, and I'd watch the film, and then I'd make adjustments. I'd watch videos on YouTube. Go to camps, different things like that. And over time, it got to the point where I was coaching her AAU team in like tournaments in other states, like big tournaments or whatever. And it was just, that in itself, was just a great thing to share with her. And she's always been very athletic. She loves to beat the boys.
But we're gonna get into that a little bit more.
Right,
We're gonna
right,
get into that a
right.
little bit more. But what you're saying is because it was similar to me,
Yeah,
not having studied film in high
right,
school, but learning
right,
how to do it properly in college, and now that's
right.
part of the preparation for whether it's practice or to get ready
Yes,
for the games, and that's
yes,
something that you took and that you're
yeah,
giving to your daughter. I always say through my coaching circles, I've coached, flag football, I've coached little kids in basketball on all different levels.
yeah,
You know, I see where they are, and I'm always going to
yeah,
be fundamental first, right?
yeah.
But I also know what it takes to get to the next level. So I like to
Right.
give them a little bit of that so they are
Absolutely.
prepared once they get there. It's like it's not foreign because I don't want them to have what happened to me, never watch film and then go in and having to
Never
watch
watch them.
film an hour and a half a day and that
Yeah.
be foreign. So I
Right.
love how you're doing that and teaching her.
Yeah.
But talk to me a little bit about this whole competitive against the boys, your daughter.
Yeah.
What's she playing now? What is she doing now?
Actually, it's funny because she's actually playing football right now. We're in the middle of the season
Yeah,
right now,
yeah.
which is great. And I'll tell you, the thing that made me most proud about, I wasn't surprised that she wanted to do it, right? Athletically speaking, especially now with the boys, they haven't hit their growth spurts yet or anything like that. She's still not even the smallest person on the team. You know what I mean? Even, being a girl, whatever. So I was so proud of the fact that she did it without asking me. She didn't ask me. She didn't ask her mother. We got a phone call from the coach
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
saying, your daughter signed up to play football, right?
Yes.
And he said, and then he commenced to tell us how much money we're going to have to spend
Yeah, 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 yeah,
in order for the play.
yeah.
And we start in 3 days
Mm-hmm,
and blah,
mm-hmm,
blah, blah.
mm-hmm.
And so this was like maybe the week before school ended this year. And I was so proud of her for that, right? I mean, at 12 years old, to have the guts to say I'm gonna sign up. I'm gonna go out here with these boys and I'm gonna put these pads on. I've never done it before. She played one season of flag football when she was, I guess, maybe second grade or something like that. Um, don't watch a ton. Admittedly, we don't watch a ton of football in the house prior to this because we were just always go, 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 basketball tournaments, da da da. And so I wouldn't even say like she's at home watching it on TV, saying, oh, this is cool. Like, I want to do that. Like, it was like, so, my wife asked her, my wife Dara asked her, she's like, well, I'm curious what made you sign up or whatever. And she was like, because the boys don't respect me at lunchtime. It's like they let me play football. I'm good enough for them to let me play, but they don't pass me the ball. They don't think that I can catch, that I can do these things or whatever the case may be. And I said, baby, if that's your motivation, I can dig it. Right?
Wow. Yeah,
Make them respect you.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
If
yeah.
they, if they don't want to give you respect, you make them respect you. So I was extremely proud. One of those moments as a parent, you're like, all right, maybe we are doing all right.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, it
but,
comes from a great place, you know what I mean?
right,
And that's what we,
right.
especially our young ladies, because it's so difficult today,
Yes, yes,
equal pay for equal work, all of those type of things, and
right,
respect. It starts on the playground. You know what I mean? My little
right,
girl is there too. She comes home every
right.
day. Dad, so and so, he didn't throw me the ball, and he tried to jump
Yeah,
over my head. What do I do? And I
right.
love the attitude of wanting to get better,
Yes,
and earning that respect, right? Just
right.
not, I'm going to show him I can play,
Yeah,
and that gives
absolutely.
her a sense of joy and pride, and I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to talk to your big bro because I can see my daughter coming up to me one day and saying, "Dad, I want to play football. Uh, Walk me through it." Was there a bit of you that was like, "That's my baby girl. I don't want to get hurt," but what
Yeah.
was that like?
Well, it's funny. Initially, I thought to myself, my first thought was not, could she handle it in terms of the physicality of it. That was never my concern. Like, she gets rough and tumble with the best of them. So I wasn't concerned about that. Um, I wasn't even necessarily concerned about, her conditioning or anything like that. But the mental part of the game, right? Like you speak to, you watching film, especially, and she kind of knows my history a little bit. So she I play wide receiver. So going in the door, she's like, yeah, I'm a wide receiver, right? She had her gloves, she ready to
Look the
go.
part, yeah.
But so I'm just telling her, babe, I'm like, hey, babe, I'm like, it's great. I was like, but there's a little bit more to it than just,
Yeah.
running straight and catching the ball. You're gonna find out, right? Um, and to the coaching staff's credit, right? These guys are football guys, right? Their team went undefeated the season before. Like in Georgia, they take football real serious. These guys were state champs as a sixth grade team, undefeated. So she's not coming into a team that's not winning games
Right.
and needs a ton of help and things like that, right? So she got to fight for it, right? There's nobody's going to be like, hey, let's just give you a shot, right?
Yeah.
And she's not necessarily used to that. She's always excelled at basketball, and she plays soccer, and she's always, one of the better players with that. So I was more concerned about that, initially, like, is she going to be able to keep pace with the speed that these guys move at? Because they're already a well-oiled machine. It wasn't like they were coming in, putting a team together, right? The core of the team was already existing. So they said, so she goes out there and, they start doing the plays. Now, I must say, technology has made it, you don't even have to be in the same room anymore. I wish they had this stuff when we played. It'd be like, okay, coach, what time is the Zoom meeting? So we can, we don't have to be in the same room. Like,
Right.
I don't have to feel like you're going to choke me, because I ran that route wrong on third and 8, whatever, right?
Yeah.
They do everything over, the internet. So, it's like, as terms of the team meetings and stuff, when you're learning the plays and stuff like that. And so for me, in the beginning, it's hard for me to translate that to where we come from when you're sitting in the room and everybody's kind of, so I'm trying to help her, but at the same time, I'm like, man, looking at these little plays on the screen, I feel like an old man. Like, I'm looking at these little plays on the screen. I'm like, let me print them out on a big, piece of paper.
The time we're in, it's a different
Yeah.
field, like you're saying, having virtual
Right.
meetings. You're not in the team room together. A lot of things have
Right.
shifted, and it's different.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, it quickly became apparent that offense, wide receiver, it just wasn't going to be her thing, right? She, not that she couldn't do it, but I don't, it wasn't, it didn't click for her like that, right? It wasn't. I could tell she didn't love it, So she, so we're like, all right. So I being a father and knowing what her abilities are, I say, she's a person that needs to see everything. So I'm like, so I'm talking to the coaches. I'm like, man, you might want to try her at safety,
Right.
and see, what's, how that goes, because that way she can see everything happening in front of her and react. Because if there's one thing I know she can do is react. And, so they're like, all right. And, in the beginning, it was a little rough because, she's never played before. So she doesn't understand the whole concept of, back pedal first. She's just like running up there as soon as the ball is snapped. And we're like, no, people can run behind you and they can throw the ball to the,
First year. Yeah. First year.
and not that she doesn't know the rules, but it's just like that, in basketball, right? It's like you get in the man's face and you play defense. So it's like this stand back here and just wait to see what happens. Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't, but, as time progressed, you start to see the shift from I don't know what's going on to, okay, I see that's a tight end over there. I know I got to move over here and shadow this guy. Like I'm watching this and I'm just like, okay, it's starting to click now. And, to her credit, she will tackle the boys. Like she doesn't have, even though you would think like at safety, right? Like that's the last man standing is you, if you in the touchdown, right? And, I tell you, like she go full speed and she's not afraid to make contact. She's not afraid to, get dirty and fall on the ground and bite you on the ankles if she has to get you down.
Get you down.
I think it's a perfect, fit for her. So she does that. She can kick from her soccer days. So she is the punter for the varsity team. And again, that's one of those things like I'm like, oh man, I hope she can handle it. But first of all, the team is really good. Like I said, they don't punt a tremendous amount. But in the times that she's done it with people running in her face, she's done it and she's done great. Right. So I gotta, it's your daughter, right? But maybe I should backtrack a second and explain the fact that because they had so many kids on the team, they had like 14 or 15 kids who never played football before. So when the season started, they had about 38 kids or something like that. So they said I had mentioned when she signed up, I was like, hey, look, man, she's an athlete. I know what she can do. I played college football, so I can kind of help her along, just mentioning in passing. But it came back to get me because they were like, hey, you know what? You played college football. We got a lot of kids who never played before.
Yeah.
Why don't you come? Can you come and coach?
Work with them a little bit.
And I wasn't trying to do that purposely because she took it upon herself to sign up and didn't say, daddy, 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 I was kind of doing this with it. I was like, you know what? I will let her experience this as a player without daddy there to be like, hey, blah, 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 blah. And, so when they asked me, I was a little hesitant because, so I said, all right, well, the first thing I got to do is ask her. I said, if she's okay with it, sure. Right. I said, if she tells me she's not okay with it, I can't do it.
Right.
Right. I was like, because this is her experience. I can't, encroach on that without permission. So, I asked him like, hey, the coaches asked me, if I can help coach because there's a lot of kids who haven't played before and blah, blah, blah. And then she just looks at me and she's like, Daddy, you've been my coach since I was 4 years old. Why would it be any different?
Right,
like it's just a different sport.
Yeah.
I was like, all right. And she's right.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So I said, okay, all right, fine. Didn't exactly know what I was getting into, right? Because these guys, like I said, these guys are serious football guys. I mean, you got, they were ranked the number 4 before I even joined the staff. They were ranked the number 4, the fourth best coaching staff for middle school teams in the state of Georgia. Right. So they're serious guys, right? They take it seriously. These guys love football. They love coaching it. And they go about the business. So as we start going through the process, right, they started their season through 3 days after school started. They're like, hey, we've got mini camp for like, I don't know, it was like a week-long thing because like they got the rules. So they had mini camp, but then they had set up workouts twice a week at a place. You had to pay for it, but they set up workouts twice a week for strength and conditioning for these kids. And then they had other things because in Georgia with middle school teams, a lot of the middle school teams basically work in conjunction with the it's probably the same in Cali, I would imagine, work in conjunction with the high schools. So it's a feeder system. So the kids that play on her team with her, they're all going to go, the majority of them are going to go to the same high school.
High school. Yep.
So it's like these kids have been playing together 5th, 6th, 7th. By the time they get to freshman year in high school, they've been playing together 6, 7 years, right? And, things only change when people move away or new people move in, type of thing or whatever. So they're going through this process, and I'm like, man, this is pretty intense. I'm like, I'm thinking about the days when we played I played recreation football back in Jersey, and it was like, okay, like you signed up, you paid your $100 or whatever dollars, they gave you your equipment, and you showed up the first day of practice. There was no like summer workouts. I mean, you got to that stuff when you got to high school, right? But this is not uncommon in Georgia, so I immediately know, okay, this is not my type, this is not your grandpa's football or your dad's football, right?
I've been away for 20 years, yeah.
This I haven't played, or I did coach for 1 year, middle school level, like maybe 6 years out of college. So I did it for 1 season, and that was it, right? So totally different thing. And so I immediately knew I had to change my thought process, right? So the game has changed,
definitely,
in terms of the tackling and the safety things they have in precaution to try to prevent the head injury. I had to relearn how to tackle in order to teach these kids the proper way to tackle, because now it's not head in the front, drive them into the ground. You can't put your helmet in the thing, right? All of those things they taught us to try and hurt the other guy when we were playing football. It's just, they frown. I wouldn't say frowned upon, but
it's a shift. There's a definitely shift for the safety factor. Right. Yeah, you're right.
So all of that was an adjustment for me. So for the first 3 weeks, they're watching film. We're doing something for football 5 days, out of the week. And I'm like, this is middle school football. I mean, we'd have practice Monday, and then we'd have a huddle call on Tuesday night, and then practice Wednesday, Thursday, right? And we get Friday off, and then Saturday, there'd be practice in the morning on Saturday. So I'm like, man, like, okay, like these guys are for real,
And she's sticking with it. She's
sticking with it.
Yeah.
So again, it was one of those things while she's adjusting, I had to shift my thinking, because I come from that old school, bark in the player's face, that's how you motivate somebody, yell at them, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I know my daughter doesn't respond to that. Right. I'm her father. Right. So, right. So I know off the bat, all right, I already can't come at her with that type of motivation tactics. So I have to adjust my thinking in terms of that and how she's going to understand things, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And we learn a lot from our kids about ourselves, right?
We do.
Because my wife points out to me all the time, a lot of the stuff that she does, that my daughter does, that we clash about, are the things that's me, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like she reminds me all the time, and I'm grateful for that, right? Because sometimes I'm to that point where it's just like, man, I just don't get it. Like, she doesn't understand. Why isn't she not responding? And then my wife will just chime in with, those lovely, words of wisdom.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and everything. Then I'm like, okay, you know what? You're right. And then usually that will help me to figure out what I need to do in order to get to that point that of understanding. So it's been a blessing. So now I'm on the field with her. I really get to see her developing on a daily basis. It's hard to not yell at your kid more. So I tend to go with the groups that aren't her group, just so she doesn't have to feel like I'm harping on her or just focusing on her, and I let the other coaches coach her. And, sometimes it's inevitable. We're going to end up together. But, it's a great feeling, man. The kids on the team don't treat her any different. Yeah. They have, in my opinion, fully accepted her. Yeah. She doesn't feel out of place. She never has around the boys. Like, that's just not, she doesn't feel out of place. She's not afraid. Like I said, she's not afraid. Almost to the point where it's kind of scary, right? Like the first time she gets out there to punt, right? The first time she gets out there to punt, and everybody's like, oh, hope she doesn't, blow it and like freak out and get, whatever. And then she just gets out there, calm as cucumbers, and just, catches boom, boom, and everybody's like, great boy, whatever. And she's just like, yeah, whatever.
Kind of calm and, just a matter of fact, just like you. And it's like
Right.
you've spent so much time with her since she was 4, playing
Yes.
basketball and, pressure and bigger kids, bigger baskets,
Right.
whatever it may be. It's
Right.
just something different. This is just
Right.
something different. But I
Right.
love how, as her father, her temperament, what she can do and what she can't do. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And she just went
Absolutely.
forward, and you guys supported her. And for me, I've been watching this for several months now. I'm,
Yeah.
talking to you, talking to your wife,
Right.
and giving
Right.
me updates. And you sending me the clip of her making a tackle last
Yeah.
week. It's nice to see her
Yeah.
thrive.
We got some more. I got some more. I got to send you some
You have
more,
to
man.
send
I
it
got
to
some
me.
more.
But it's good.
Definitely.
I really
Yeah.
have learned by watching her. I've always watched her little coming up and doing her thing, and I've
Yeah.
always complimented her.
Yeah.
Hey, you did a great job. You know what I mean? So
You and me both.
yeah,
I mean, I learned from it too. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. It's one of those things. We go at it like, I think like any father and daughter, when you're in a coaching situation, or any child and parent, when you're in a coaching situation, right? Like you as the coach parent trying to motivate your child to do better, because you know what your child is capable of, right?
yeah.
So when you look at your child, when I look at my daughter, I see like an uber athlete. People
Mhm.
used to always tell me when I was a kid, like, man, you're good at anything you try,
Mhm.
athletically.
Mhm.
And she's the same way, right? Almost anything she decides she wants to try, like, she might not be good when it starts, but by the time she's done, she's got it. And that so when you see that, it's like you try to tell her, like, come on, you got to do this or whatever, and it's like, just come on, I just don't want you to waste your potential, like, and and all of that. And then my wife will just walk by and like, she's 12. Okay, you got it, right? It's just like, all right,
Gotcha.
and hey, look, but that's, my wife is just as much a part of this coaching thing
Yeah.
as I am, because she, even though she's not on the field or on the court, she steps in, she's that that voice of reason.
Yeah.
When things start
Bring
to
it down.
start to go left,
Mhm.
she's the one that can point out,
Mhm.
okay, no, you got to think about it like this, or
Right.
think
Right.
about it like that, right?
Yep.
And I'm blessed to have
Yeah.
that, right?
More
Because
teamwork
a
right
lot of
there.
times it may not have turned out as well
Yeah.
as it have. I might not have been as patient as I should have been had it not been, for my wife's input. And that's not just when it comes to the kids either. That's just,
All things, we,
all things, right?
last episode we talked about not following after your teammate, and it's like
Right.
your wife ain't following you down that rabbit hole of all over the place. Let's
Right.
calm down, Rob. It's gonna be okay, and we're gonna live to see
Yes.
another day. And we need those
Absolutely.
common forces in our lives, and when we're not that force, that common force. So appreciate it. But man, thank you. I appreciate your contribution to the show, not only spending some time with me and reminiscing, and also, helping me as far as, what you just shared about your daughter playing football and what that process looks like. And, the things that you brought from football, to give to her, the lessons that you learned. Those are lifelong lessons that, someone passed to you, and now you're passing it along to her. And you're seeing just how valuable those principles are. So appreciate you, man. And, I tell everybody who's been on the show so far, we can talk.
Yeah.
So we'll hook up
Absolutely.
again, and we'll do it again.
Man, definitely. We definitely got to do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm definitely gonna, put everybody on to the show.
Appreciate it.
I mean, I think in our worlds, we know a whole lot of people who love football and are dads.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely rooting for you, bro. I'm definitely gonna tell everybody about it.
Thanks.
And we definitely, anything you need from me, I'm here, bro. So,
Likewise. Phone call away.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you. I love you, man. And I can't wait to see where this thing goes for you.
Thank you for joining this episode of Fatherhood and Football, a Dad's Thing production, where finding and embracing our roles in fatherhood is a journey and one that we do not have to do alone. Please join us next Thursday for our next episode and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at A Dad's Thing for all your fatherhood-related content. You can also find our podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, and Radio Public.